everybody, to the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr. My guest today, so I have this guy on and I'm like, how do you introduce this guy? And so I'm just going to kind of go at it like this. If there was a Mount Rushmore of comic book content creators on YouTube, this guy would be there, and he would be noticeably recognizable because of the glasses and the logo and the hair, right?
He
is the king, the hair, 100%. He's the king of the top 10 list. He is, you can go to his channel. Everybody knows this guy. Comic book speculation, hanging out with all the cool people in the community, the Jim Mints of the world, Rockin' Robbie's, very Gary's, all these people. You'll have the Golden Age Guru, Fire Guy Ryan, Russ. I mean, just all kinds of great people. Everybody join me in welcoming the man, myth, the legend, ComicTom.
Yo, what's good, man? I'm super excited to be here. I really enjoy what you do, giving time to different members of the comic community, anyone providing value to our awesome collector circle and this awesome medium that we all love. I'm all for it. So thanks so much, man.
Cool, man. I appreciate you taking your time out to come hang out with me for a little bit. And, your channel was one of those that when I kind of got back into it, got back into the hobby, I collected as a kid. And, then went to college and things kind of got out of it. Then, my kids grew up and no longer wanted to hang out with me. And so I kind of was looking for something to do, right? And so comic books was kind of that natural thing to fall into. And I started watching YouTube content, and ComicTom was one of the first channels I came across, kind of helped guide me and what I maybe should be looking to read, and just really all the different facets that you talk about. So, yeah, I was on your channel. Well, I don't think I was on it early, but I think I was on it early for me when I came back into the hobby. So
awesome, man. Well, that's why we make content, man. We're trying to grow the community.
Absolutely. All right. So question one, Tom, is always the same. Okay. For anybody that comes on, and it is like your origin story, like what got you into collecting to begin with?
Ooh, okay. So it's because of my dad. My dad is, it's all his fault. I think I put on my Twitter, or it's one of my socials. I don't know. I wrote it a long time ago, but I never changed it. I said, I grew up at the back of the comic book store. Now I sell comics for a living. Thanks, Dad. It was like, it's kind of a fun little thing. That's the truth. I mean, my dad, he was a drummer of a band called Ookla the Mock. And Ookla the Mock is one of the, if not the first, one of the first geek, or as they like to call it, nerd rock bands. And you can check them out on Spotify. They've been doing it for a long time. He's no longer, once you're part of the band, you're kind of always part of the band. But he was a drummer for the first couple albums. And this is a band that would sing about why there's no bathrooms on the Enterprise. Mr. Potato Head, a whole song about Mr. Potato Head, a whole song about superpowers, which taught me about what adamantium was at 5 years old. A song about the Bride of Wolfman and Captain Kirk, and what the dark side is, like the Force and things like that, like the rock, nerd rock. Aquaman, why Aquaman will never be cool, even though he is cool now. Didn't always used to be cool. And he was a drummer for that band. So I grew up with a dad who was always playing music, always soundproof in our home. And I would go to his practices. He'd get me into bars. I don't know how he was able to do that back then. They didn't have the same type of rules and stuff. But, I was just always around the convention scene because of this. It was a lot smaller back in the day. But we would go to what was, now we think of conventions like, pop culture conventions, Comic-Con, San Diego, WonderCon, New York City. But back in the day, man, that's not how it was. It was sci-fi conventions. You go to various states, and we'd pack a hotel for 3 days, and there'd be just a plethora of things to do. And I'm talking like a hotel room that would just be reserved to have Buffy streaming all day, every day. From literally nonstop. You could go at 3 a.m. or 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and there's Buffy playing, and there's fans of Buffy in that room, and you can just go from that room to the comic book section if you wanted, or you can go to the music section, and that's where my dad would be, and he'd be playing music for all these people. So I grew up in the space and around a lot of comic book lovers. This is a long story. You asked the origin, right?
No, keep going. Yeah.
So what he would end up doing is getting a job at a store called Flight into Fantasy in Buffalo, New York. That's where I'm from. And this is between the ages of 6 years old and 10 years old, right around there for about 3 years solid. And he would run the store. He would help manage it, manage people's boxes, and just do kind of, clean up. And, it was like the right-hand guy to the store owner. And we needed a place to live. We didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. And, obviously he worked at a comic book store, right? So what would happen is this storefront above the store was an apartment. That apartment was owned by the store owner. His name is Jeff, who, by the way, he is back into comic books. This guy named Jeff I grew up with when I was a little kid. He would leave the comic space and come back in the last couple of years. So it's pretty cool. I was actually just talking to him today. He put out a new Spirits of Vengeance cover. I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? But I digress. Behind the store, there was an apartment, like literally connected to it. And that apartment would be rented out by me and my dad. So I grew up for 3 years in the back of a comic book store. I remember waking up Saturday mornings, watching cartoons, and then going through the kitchen. My dad had beads on the door that didn't lead outside. He had these beads that separated from another door, and I'd go through those beads, open that door, and then I was in the back of a comic store. And if I ever wanted to, I just go back there with my Magic deck, and I play Magic, D&D, grab whatever comics on the wall. They didn't have me pay for anything. It's like, oh, Tom's here. What do you want? Just go and grab it, read it, put it back, whatever you want. So I was just in the space for a long time. What would end up happening is my dad would buy all the inventory of that store when we moved to California when he remarried. Because the store owner at the time, Jeff, that I just mentioned, he decided to do something else and he wanted to get out of the comic stuff. So we would take 2 semis, like 2 giant semi trucks full of comics all the way across the country from New York to California, then to Washington, where I live now. And he would start this process of becoming a dealer. He wanted to open up a storefront, but this was like at a time where the economy wasn't the best and stores weren't succeeding the way, granted, it's always a tough market, but what would end up happening is he would decide not to open a store and he would start going to these now emerging, growing larger conventions. We'd go to Safeco Field. We'd go to, they call them different. It's different ownership now of these different arenas, but we would go to these places that would turn into Emerald City Comic Con, that would turn into these, Tacoma Jet City Comic Con. But this is, when I was younger, and we would just bring the inventory and we would sell. And I hated it. It was not fun. I would have to move long boxes. I'm not the biggest guy. I'm working out now, but as a kid, I knew comics as a job, Tom, go grab the 30 long boxes, and I would grow up on the, doing that with my dad over the summer. We'd go to malls, pull out all of our long boxes, and something interesting would happen. He would, he was new at this. So he was selling comics for very, very cheap. In one of the larger conventions, he put out a bunch of comic books and he was selling them for like $5. And one of the dealers, John Hill, he's one of the biggest dealers in the country. Hill's of Comics out in Auburn, Washington. If you've ever been to a convention, he has been there. Like he's at every major show. Hill's of Comics, he's got a ton of books, very knowledgeable guy. And this guy would walk up to my dad's booth and not buy anything. He would see what my dad was selling and then go to my dad and say, dude, grab your lids, don't sell, pull all these back. You are costing yourself so much money. You need to grade, you need to price. And after that conversation, a friendship was born. He would become like one of my family friends. I look at this guy like he's a uncle to me. And again, this is like, I'm like 11 years old, right? 12 years old. So my dad learned the hard way that you can't sell Silver Age for $5. He didn't really know what he was doing. He was kind of new at this. And what that would do, that comic karma that John would give, I would meet John Delamain from Torpedo Comics. I would meet later on in my adulthood, a guy named Russ Bright, who is the comic sensei. Russ Bright would introduce me to the Golden Age guru, Jeff. And this circle formed from my teenage years into my adult years. So when I started getting back into collecting when I could afford it, well, I had all these different mentors and friends. And, after just years and years of collecting and kind of getting really into it myself in my 20s when I could afford it, these individuals are family, they're friends. And I thought it'd be really cool to just start talking to them on the mic, maybe entertain other dealers. So long long story short, that started the channel. You know, we were intending on making content just for our friend group, for the dealers, give them something to listen to when they're hunting and when they're pricing and grading. And then it became, man, we can maybe do some good in this community, give back to this community, maybe grow this community. So that's what I've been doing for 3 years.
That's awesome, brother. That's great. You know, and like for me, it was my uncle. I had an uncle who was into trading cards, and he would go to flea markets and sell. And, you know, I've told it on here many times, but I used to go with him, and I would just sit on his table, and, you know, he's selling all this stuff, and anything I wanted to read, I could, you know, and he had all kinds of stuff. So I would just sit there and I would read comic books, and then I would go eat flea market food and then come back and hang out, you know. And so, no, I think that's a great story. And I knew your dad, you know, Comic Pops was into, you know, kind of, is probably where that started, but that's a great origin story. I love it. All right, so question 2 is, are you a reader, or do you just collect? Do you read a lot of books?
Oh man, I read so many books. I read so many books, but it's a strange situation because I read stuff not as much for like personal enjoyment. I have to read just for the show now. For example, you know, of course, I have books I read. I have pull lists. I have so many comics, and I'm constantly catching up. But the show is more of my direction. So, yes, I want to finish Stray Dogs, but I haven't read the 5th issue yet. And I want to, but you want to know what I read this past week? I had to read like 5 different Kang appearances. I had to track down the Throg appearances. I had to read Lockjaw and Pet Avengers 1 through 3 this week. Like, when something happens in the market, well, great. You know what? I want to read the latest, you know, the ending to Nick Spencer's run, you know, but like, I'm reading about Abomination now, and I'm going through. And when I make some of these videos, it takes so much time to prep a script and to be able to, you know, because I forget. I'm constantly reading, and we're talking about so many books that I have to reread books. And last week, with the Kang stuff that happened in Loki episode 3, and then we got a teaser for episode 4. Is that right? Whenever the Sphinx came up, I think that was just last week. I'm already forgetting.
I think it was last week. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I'm reading FF 274 and then 275. And then I had to read Rama Tut in FF 19. And that brought me to Avengers 8. And then that took me to like years later to the Kang like run of 6 issues. So I'm like, you know, I didn't think I was going to read all that. But the Loki trailer dropped. We saw Sphinx, and now I have to go through this whole thing. So I read a ton of comics. But as far as like ongoing issues, man, it's like, hey, the Comic Fam sometimes sends me books. I got this from TPub, Twisted Dark Volume 1. This is by Neil Gibson, and this book is so damn good. I would have never gotten to this book, but because the Comic Fam sent it in, someone from TPub likes our show. I'm falling in love with this writer, man. Like, it's a book of short stories. And I'm talking like some of these stories are 3 or 4 pages. Some are 6 pages. And in a matter of 6 pages, you feel sad, scared, you laugh, and then you're horrified. And it's like Goosebumps in a trade, but like for adults. But how did that happen? Someone sent it on the show. I feel a responsibility to, you know, help out with the independent community. We have members who are sending stuff in for a reason, so I take that seriously. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's a weird way, but it keeps me on my toes, and I end up reading a lot of stuff that I didn't think I would read at the start of the week. But I end up getting to the stuff I like because, hey, I got to catch up on something that's killing the children, right? You know, that's going to happen, you know, at some point this year. It just may not happen as quick as I want to. Did I answer your question?
Well, that's interesting because, you know, I guess I had, 100%. But I mean, I guess I got to follow up because that's interesting. And I guess I didn't really think about it that way and how much prep time there really is, you know, for a show, because you're constantly talking about what's going on right now. So like you said, if something drops on Loki, then you've got to go, because the Kang thing has been speculated for a while that he may, you know, show up in Loki. I think I've heard you say that you think he'll end up somehow, you know, they'll end up referencing Kang in the Loki show, maybe behind the scenes. And I know Jeremy Irons just signed a 5 movie deal or a 5 project deal, something like that.
Jonathan Majors, yeah, man.
Jonathan Majors, sorry, yeah. And so, you know, I don't think I realized how much prep you're really having to do. Like you do have to go back and read those books so you know what the hell you're talking about when you get on the mic.
Oh man, it's so much prep. This is like all I do, man. It's a big responsibility. I don't think I realized what we were signing up for when I thought, like, it started with the trending video, right? And we actually hit our 3-year marker. I think it was last week. And I've done a trending 10, the market trending video I do with an Overstreet Price Guide advisor every single week without fail, rain or shine, convention. I've been sick. I've been tired. I've been injured. Everything under the sun. I've never missed a week. And it's definitely a grind that's kind of like, it now bugs me. Like, I don't think I could even take a week off and enjoy the time. But it's what it is, man. It's like I feel a sense of responsibility to serve this community. And now we do the Hot 10 with Gem Mint, which is a whole other layer of responsibility for kind of a different group of collectors, but a lot of the same. And yeah, it's like my Thursday, Friday grind is real. It's more labor intensive than when I worked in the financial industry. I figure out what the list is, and then I have, I'm on the phone, I'm talking to all of my sources, I'm chatting with Nick from Key Collector regularly. He's one of my best friends, and going through, okay, well, of the 20, which ones are going to be on my list, and I'm organizing that. And then I'm learning about stuff that some of it I know, but sometimes we're talking about books for the second or third time for a completely different reason. And then, I also try to bring as much entertainment to this. It's important for me to do high production value, but to also surprise the community and not just like read off an Overstreet or something like that. So I'm looking for stuff that interests me. And I find that when I'm getting excited about something I find out, well, then the community gets excited as well. And that kind of just feeds the fire. It makes me keep going. But yeah, man, it's like to do the trending video every week. I mean, we're putting between editing, production, and scripting, it's over 20 hours. Easily over 20 hours.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, question three was, or it's going to be question 3 now, is like you, and it's something you just said is, from the entertainment standpoint, you have a great deal of energy when you're doing the show. And I guess my question was, is how hard is that to maintain? Which, I mean, I know you're talking about comic books, you're talking to your boys, you're having a good time, but like, how hard is it to maintain that energy?
It's really not hard. It's harder to do it in a way that I'm proud of, but it's not hard to hit the mic and chat comic books. It's probably the easiest part of everything that I do. I stress about saying something wrong. I stressed about, sometimes we'll talk about the assets, the amount of pictures that we put in a video, we have to find every single one. It's like, at times we're talking about like 20, 30 books in 15 minutes. So it's a lot of, and here's the real truth. And it's a responsibility I take seriously. So I completely understand it. But if we're wrong about one thing, that's everything. Like that right there could lead someone the wrong way for a purchase. If I show the wrong book, if I talk about the wrong book, if I have if we provide an opinion that doesn't have enough, enough backing that opinion because I didn't put enough time into it. I've had a couple close calls. I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I know this. And it's like, oh wait, had I said that in a different way, it would have brought more value to the community or would have steered people wrong. And someone could have spent $100 when they shouldn't have. It's just a lot of responsibility. So it's definitely more difficult every other part besides when I hit this table. Cause when I'm chilling with, some of my good friends and my family here and we're chatting comic books, I mean, this is what we do. Like a lot of these conversations are an extension from my kitchen. I talked to the guru today, and we were talking about grading and grading times and grading video games and Marvel Spotlight 5 again. My whole life is family and comic books. So, when I hit the mic and I get to talk about, Jessica Cruz or something, I'm freaking hyped for real. It's exciting to me to chat about Loki, Glorious Purpose,
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I don't know why I wondered that, but I was like, man, he brings it every time. Like every time you watch his video, he brings it. And I know I've just been doing this for a little while, and I interview some people. I'm obviously not, up there where you're at, but as far as It is. It's a lot of work. You know, you got to edit, and then too, sometimes you're tired. Like I've been working all day, and then I come home and I got to shoot a video,
Right.
and I'm tired, and then you still got to bring it. And I don't know. I just always kind of wondered that. So, question 4 is now: do you own a comic book shop, or do you just sell like at conventions and online?
Um, I do not own an LCS, no. And I thought about it, and I decided not to a few years ago. There was a point where I was thinking about maybe doing that. It was at the start of the channel, but I realized, my good friend Russ Bright, he has an LCS, and it's a tough business. And I would rather help empower him and help grow my personal LCS that I have a shelf at than to go into competition in any way or to split that, any of that traffic that we may generate by serving the community. So I do not own a store, nor will I ever own a store, not as long as my friends have stores. I find it more of my responsibility to help empower them and to help bring them customers in a very difficult market, because they serve their communities and they do a hell of a job doing it. Especially, all my homies at conventions, they're doing the same thing. So where I do sell, however, we do have one of the biggest comic book subscription services in the world. That's entirely because of the community. Helps make it so that I can do all the videos I do. Fire Guy Ryan is working comics full time. My Comic Pops, my dad, is doing comics for full time. He was working at a grocery store, in the meat department, doing all that kind of stuff, and I roped him back in. He's like becoming a better presser than I am now. And we have a full-time bag and boarder. It's so I have a very small group. There's not many of us, but all that to say is we have a subscription service, so you can call that a store if you could. We have a place where we have to make all of these packages and such. And I do have an eBay page where I sell stuff as well. But that's it. That's the ways I sell comics. I don't even set up at conventions. I would rather be behind one of my friends' booths to just try to bring members over to chat with and to meet, and then to be able to give a good recommendation to our community and say, hey, this guy right here, I've known him for 6 years. Offer him something good. They'll give you a good deal. You're a member of the Comic Fam. I'm not looking for extra money in any way like that. I'd rather go to the convention and empower my friends.
Love it. That's a great answer, man. Spreading that comic karma, as you like to say. I love it. So, question 5. Let's talk about Mystery Mail Call. So let's talk about it. So that'll be question 5, and that's the other thing, because I follow you on Instagram, and I see the pictures you post. You guys putting that together. How much work is that? Dude, there are tables of just books everywhere. How many of it does it take to actually put that together?
It's a lot of work, man. We're on a 30-day grind every single month to serve our members. So as soon as USPS picks up those packages, which is a issue within itself, just getting the pickup to happen is stressful. Getting the bins we got to put the boxes in is stressful. There's a national bag and board shortage, paper and plastic shortage right now. My boxes are 3 weeks late. I have, there's a lot of different moving parts to serve this community that I take very seriously, but it's a daily grind to just get the inventory, let alone putting it together and making sure it goes out. There's a handful of us. I couldn't do it without the team. I spend a lot of my time getting things like the exclusives done, which is really, that's a job in itself, working with artists, working with publishers, making sure the art is approved on all levels, making sure the artist is happy with it. Oh, we got to switch this one little part. And the artist doesn't really want to do it. Okay, can I Photoshop it? Can I help with that? Okay, we did it. Everyone's happy. Oh, shoot, now the book's delayed. What are we going to send out? All of these types of questions in 3 years have had to have an answer to it. So it's a grind, man. But we have a solid team of I don't know. It's me and Fire Guy Ryan and a couple people who like to help out throughout the month that are on payroll, that get paid hourly to bag and board and to sort. Fire Guy Ryan is the sorter. He's the person who makes sure that all the love gets equally distributed. And my cat is biting me. Hold on. He wants so much attention.
I love the cat.
Comic Butch in the house. He's
Yeah,
like
Comic Butch.
biting my feet. But yeah, we have like, I think total on like assembly day, I'll be there. My dad will be there. Our bag and border will be there. Fire guy Ryan will be there, and like one other person, and we'll just work for a couple days straight, just putting those in bags and making sure everybody's orders are correct and putting stickers on boxes and such. But it's a very small crew because we have to keep it small because
Right.
we're trying to keep the cost as low as possible so that we can provide the most value to our members. Because that's what
Absolutely.
it's about.
That's right. It's a great box. Like one of my favorite things about the box is the exclusives. There's always some kind of dope exclusive variant cover that comes. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how does that process even happen? Like, and I don't want to know like insider trade secrets or anything, but like, do you reach out to these artists and say, hey, I would like for you to do an exclusive? Do they reach out to you? Like, kind of how does that work?
Man, I mean, everything. I mean, some publishers, you cannot reach to the artist yourself. You have to go through that publisher and have that publisher do what they do because there's schedules in place. There is priorities in place. There's a lot of stores that do exclusives. So it all depends on the publisher. It depends on the artist. It also depends on if the artist is already approved by the publisher. So there's steps that you have to take with that. But, on the simple end, I got homies over at Scout Comics. I freaking love those guys. It's one of the best independent comic book companies ever to have existed. I'm talking like since Image days, I've never felt more like this is a company that really cares about every single IP that they're helping get to the mainstream and doing it right by every creator involved. Shout out James Hake. But we also have, so working with them, it's super easy. Like it's independent comics. I'm able to talk to, a lot of these creators who know who we are. And it's like, I have a really cool idea for homage. What if I can get Peach Momoko on Wretches, right? That'd be cool. I think that'd be cool. Maybe Peach Momoko's a kind of new artist. Maybe she'll do it. And boom, it was like, yes, Peach Momoko, that'd be great. But I'll give you an example. This boys cover here. This is our exclusive book that we got coming out in this July. We're going to be shipping this out next week, the following week, when USPS picks it up on like the following Tuesday. This book is from 2000. Well, it's a brand new book, but we took the original Boys #1 back to press from 2006. This isn't Dear Becky, the new run. This is Garth Ennis #1, right? So we had to get this approved through Dynamite. And also the Boys IP holders had to approve it. We had to get Ben Templesmith approved to do the cover. We had to get the Homelander on the cover approved. The Homelander can't be Anthony Starr, I think is his name. It can't look like him per se. It can't be the same from the movie or from the show. It has to be, like the comic book. So like, there's all these different steps that go into it. I started this process back in October of last year. We are not shipping this out till July of this year. So to put in perspective, that's how long, like, granted, there's hiccups and there's things that happen. And could I have done it sooner? Probably. But I mean, some of these books, it takes a lot of work to align, get all the stars to align to make it happen. A lot of effort. And then when it deploys, you never know, you never know if the community is going to dig it or not. So it's a lot of pressure to get it done right. But fortunately, we have such a great team and the publishers have been just so supportive of what we do. So they make it easy for us. And as long as I do my part every day to make sure that everything's happening and emails are getting answered and, that we're doing what we got to do to make it happen, we end up with a book that's super special. And I do my best to make a comic book that will perform well. Because it is a mystery box. I don't expect every person to dig the Boys like I do. This is one of my favorite comic books of all time, right? So in the event that this goes in the hands of somebody who's like, I don't like mature comics, I don't like superhero comics, I don't like Homelander, like that's a real thing that may happen. Sure. Well, at least it's worth something. And that's my goal. Like I'm trying to make stuff that is special enough that it performs because our members help keep this going. So this is like part of kind of the deal I have is that I'm going to put all my effort into making the coolest damn cover I can so that you're at least proud to own it or that, hey, if you don't like it, you can sell it by all means, do what you want to do with it. Pay for your box, and keep the rest of the stuff that we have in there.
Yeah, so that was going to be the other question was, do you have like creative control over the cover? Like, do you get to decide, like you go to Ben Templesmith and you say, okay, I want a cover for the boys, and then he brings you a couple of different, drawings as far as here's what I'm thinking of doing. How does that work?
Depends again on the publisher and the IP. Sometimes if you're dealing with I won't get into any specifics here, but like, depending on the cover, if there is something in the book, maybe like if you're working on you have like a particular character that's like super famous or something. The outfit that the person's in doesn't really match this series, so we need to fix that. Like I've experienced that before, but more times than not, the process is like, I'll get asked a lot. I always do it. Actually, I do it in the same way every time, unless I have something very specific that I'm envisioning. I have an homage that I'm going to release in 6 days that I am so excited about, so proud of. That one was my idea. I'm like, I want an homage to this. I want to blow people's minds when I do this. So I had to find an artist who would be like, absolutely, I'll do that. And then they run with it, and boom, that's like definitely more my inspiration. But more times than not, like, for example, the Something is Killing the Children, Raph Grassetti variant. Unless Raph says, yo, Tom, what do you want? Because I want your vision. What's your idea? What's your concept? Unless he says that, I'm not going to tell the God of War art director how to pose. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, he is I say this very, like, honestly, I firmly believe this, bottom of my heart. He's the Michelangelo of the digital age. Raph Grassetti, we are lucky to have him at all in the comic scene. I'm not going to tell him how to pose a character unless he has, unless he's asking me or something like that.
Sure.
I'm empower the artist to have them do what they do because they're the creative. And more times than not, like, honestly, I can't even think of one cover where I've done that and was like, you know what? I wish John Boy Myers drew that turtle different. Like, no, I've never felt like that. When John Boy Myers draws a Raphael, I'm like, damn, I'm glad that he drew it like that. I've never thought, it's like, put it in their court. They're the creative, empower them to do it unless they want inspiration or help or something that I may be able to assist with. It's more about just, that's your arena. I'm going to respect what you do because me providing that, that freedom is going to produce beautiful and like art concepts that I would never think about because I'm not an artist.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think that's a great answer. And I think that's how I think I would feel is if an artist is doing something, who am I? I want to get out of the way and let them do what they do. So, I think that's
I'll get like handful of sketches sometimes though. Like that also happens a lot. Like, I don't have one here with me, but I do have my, this is my America Chavez Marvel Pride #1. Super proud of this cover. This is done by Edge, Art of Edge over on Instagram. So she actually did our Fantastic Four 32 cover, which is the like the proposal wedding issue of Doctor Doom, right? And I think there were like 5 different sketches that were provided. And it was like, yo, which one do you like the most, right? Like, let's figure that out. And the response, like, I was looking for a very specific type of cover because this is a moment. This is Doctor Doom, right? So I thought, I want the cover that if we were to take the trade dress off and in Doctor Doom got this picture done when he was married, he'd be in his lair, right? He'd be sitting on his throne like a freaking pimp. He's awesome, right? And he would have this giant, portrait or picture from his wedding on his wall. I envisioned that. So I looked at all these sketches and I'm like, this one's a little too far away. This one's there's too many characters, I want the one where this guy's going to go, oh yeah, this is my wedding portrait. And this is going to go giant on my wall where I'm going to see it every day as I plan how to overthrow the Fantastic Four. You know what I'm saying? Right. So sometimes it's like that, where there's a little bit more thought that goes into it because it's like, oh, the cover really deserves that. And the artist gave me an opportunity to kind of shop because, hey, they're doing a couple different sketches and they want us to be happy. But then sometimes, you're working with Ben Templesmith, the horror legend, and you're like, yo, dude, I just want a Homelander cover. You do you. And then Ben Temple Smith gives you this, and you go, hell yes.
Hell yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, he's a great, great artist. I've kept a lot of the books and the prints that I've gotten from your box of his because I think they're cool. I mean, I have done what you said. Like, there's been a book that that's not really doesn't fit me or doesn't fit my PC, and I'll sell it and I get my money back for the box. Like, I've never been out. That's one of the things I like about your box. I think it has really good value. So I want to jump back for question 6 and talk a little bit about the YouTube channel because I would be remiss if I, having you on here if I didn't ask a couple of these questions. So for people that are creators who have gained some success, such as you have, that success breeds trolls, right? And there's a lot of negativity out there, especially on social media. And I was wondering, how you deal with that as far as, do you just kind of not pay attention to it? Do you read it and say, okay, is there something constructive here that I can change in what I'm doing? Like, how does Comic Tom deal with that?
I'm so busy that I don't really have a whole lot of time for negativity. Now, if someone's providing their opinion and they disagree and maybe they're a little negative, that's one thing. That's totally fine. I mean, that's, hey, give me some constructive criticism. Maybe I could have said something better. Maybe I say Comic Fam too much in a video because like I say it so often that it just kind of rolls off the tongue. Like, who knows? Maybe they don't like the soundboard, but as far as like people being mean or calling names or saying things that are a little gross, like, I mean, that's just a quick, I don't need it. Go somewhere else. Like, you don't have to watch the show. It's no big deal. But really, when it comes down to it, I know for sure that we're providing value to the community. Like, I know we are. I talk to our members. I get DMs on Instagram daily, and I communicate with our members daily. It takes a lot of work to try to keep up with the amount of members that we have. But I'm someone who like tries to schedule their time to make sure that I'm responding to 80+% of the DMs that I can on Insta and sending video messages back, audio messages, and providing insight. Yo, I think you did do a good job here. Yes, you can probably fix this by pressing it like this. Yeah, if you do the sticker removal with lighter fluid instead of paint thinner because of this particular era, that may work a little bit better. Like, I do things like that to try to help as many members as I can, because I take this position very seriously. People watch the channel and they give me a little bit of their time, sometimes a lot of their time. That's the most valuable commodity that we have, right? So
absolutely.
So like negativity, there's not a whole lot of time for it, but the proof is in the pudding, right? Like we have a video that goes up and there's largely positive comments, and I get it all the time on tags like, hey, thank you for this. I pulled this out of my long box, whether it be a LCS or a member. Didn't know that this dollar bin book moved up. An LCS saying, yo, I've had this box of comics underneath here for 3 years. I didn't even know that this was a thing. Thank you. We were able to help make the rent that month because it did spike to $10 and a lot of people wanted it. Like stores play our show like in their store, and they wouldn't do that if there wasn't a sense of value that someone's getting from it. And I'm on a weekly grind providing value in that way, but also sales and spec is traditionally where we get the most criticism, right? Because, hey, books are expensive and that kind of sucks sometimes. We're talking about money, right? Like it's a thing. It's part of the collectible. Like this is a medium that like legit shouldn't exist by all accounts. Like, how many magazines do you see on stands anymore? How many magazine stores do you see anymore? Like this is surviving because of collectors like you and me, right? And the community in its entirety. So without that part of the market, we'd be in a whole lot of trouble. So I think it's very important. However, that's like as far as if you were to count up the amount of time that that I'm on the mic talking about money and what comics sell for, which is really where 99% of the criticism comes from, right? That you're talking about. And there's not that much, but that's where it would be. People who disagree about a comic that's on the list, or what something's selling for, and they don't think it should sell for that much, whatever it may be. Maybe 25 to 30 minutes a week if we are hitting our time frame that we're trying to hit. Sometimes we go a little longer. I do a podcast upwards of 2 to 2.5 hours a week that has very little to do with anything that sells above $10. Like, granted, I'll have the Golden Age Guru here and we're chatting about some expensive books and some spec, but we did a whole breakdown of like the first Overstreet price guide. We were chatting about grading and FOMO and buyer's regret and seller's regret, reading comics, history, golden age history, silver age history, bronze age history, you name it. I've probably talked about it, and I will talk about it again, because comics aren't just all about what's spiking this week and what's hot so you can flip it. There's a lot of these numbers that we see and these record breakers that are happening. Flippers aren't buying this stuff. Like, there's a lot, of course, people do what they're going to do, and like, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, we are in a brand new market where we have some of the most amount of entry to our community. And these are people who want to own this stuff because they like it. You think people are trying to spec on Eliath? Like, they're paying $40 for the first appearance of Eliath? No, don't get it twisted. These are people who saw Loki episode 5 and they're like, I want to own Elias' first appearance. I want to show this to my friends. I want to put this in a nice bag and board. And yeah, that book sold for $1 2 weeks ago. And now it's selling for more, and they're owning it because they have pride in the collectible, just like I have pride in, a bunch of my books that I'm never going to sell. So I hope that answers your question.
That's a great answer. No, love it. All right, so I want to talk a couple of things that are maybe a little more current event-y or whatever. I just kind of like to get your feel on some things. So question 7 is, Jay-Z, Rock Nation, Blackstone, just purchased CGC, right? So what do you think? How do you think that affects? Because, what I hear, the people that I'm around, is how long it's taken for CGC to get books back. The grading times are very long. And then there's random issues, which there will be in business and human error. But I just wonder, what do you think about that company purchasing CGC and how that could impact the community?
I hope it's going to be well. I think it could potentially be really good, right? All these concerns that people have about quality control, which I think is largely not happening. I think that there is more people grading comics now than there ever has been. And the quality control question, we do see a lot of things. Hey, if you got a hair in your slab, guess what? You're complaining about hair in your food. Like, that is not something to complain about. Get it reholdered, complain about something else. Now, if something's wrong and there's a mistake, yes, that sucks. Oh, well, get it fixed. But I happen to know, at least from my understanding of the situation, I got, I've met people at CGC. I've been in their grading room at a convention. I've shared drinks with their lead grader. Shout out Matt Nelson. Like, these are, what I can say about CGC in particular is that they are exactly 100% the types of people you want to send your comics to be handled and graded. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've watched the graders handle your books, and magic happen. Their eyes, it's like they have superpowers. I've never seen people grade the way that they grade because they're so damn good and they're so meticulous and they handle it with such flawless ability. Guru can back me up. He was in the room. They flew us down to Chicago to cover CGC for the weekend to provide content to their community. And they're like, hey, open doors, come and see. We're transparent, show it off. And we did that. And we watched comics get graded. And there wasn't a time, not one time that I was there where I said, man, if the comic fam saw this, they'd get upset. Not one time. I would show you. Granted, I couldn't show the actual machine that they use. We had to sign a waiver because it's insider stuff, right?
Sure.
But far as the graders and how they handled books and how they graded books and how this books got put into a slab and how they were it takes a good amount of time to get your book graded and put in a case. I was actually surprised the process. I was like, oh, damn, there's actually a lot of care and legit minutes that it takes for one book to get put in. So as far as CGC goes and this buyout, majority owners now is what I from what I understand. I'm not a big fan of Wall Street getting involved. Granted, if you're upset about Wall Street, then you'd be upset about Beckett,
right,
as well. So it's how much can you really complain? I'm more concerned about Blackstone. Really outside of the comic market, essentially creating a nation of renters. There's a lot of people complaining about Blackstone being part of CGC. What about them buying up more homes than available so they can start charging people to rent so that they can't own a home. Like they're doing other things that I'm more concerned about than a couple celebrities getting involved to try to create more services, to automate more of the process to get comics out to a very hungry community. Like, I think it's going to be good, but as on a larger scale, I'm more concerned about other things that Blackstone's involved with. But I'm not in the financial industry anymore. I'm in the comic game. So,
Right. Well, I guess my question was, the thing that I guess kind of worried me was when you have a group of investors and there's an investment group that now owns a business, it becomes about the bottom line. And I'm sure that CGC is that way now. You have people who own the company, it's about making money, and I get that, and that's not a problem. Sure. I just wonder if it becomes more about the bottom line than it does about the community, and it negatively impacts the community in some way. And then the other thing that comes across my mind is, like, is Jay-Z going to do a video and have like a CGC comic book? Like, are we going to get some kind of cool crossover, and do something? Is something big going to come from that?
I'll tell you, the day that Jay-Z does that, this change to our community, just like what Disney Plus has done, there's no telling what'll happen. I think it's exciting. I think that there should be more celebrities that are excited about comic books. I mean, this is like what it's about. There's a reason why we enjoy this so much. But the thing is that comics are kind of like a foreign language to a degree. I can chat with you about, Gray Hulk versus Green Hulk in, between the issues of 1 and 2 of Incredible Hulk, right? But most people, they have no idea. They're just like, yeah, comics are cool and some are expensive. But like, as soon as it's kind of more palatable and you see a celebrity, I mean, heck, Logan Paul, which I don't care for that individual, that influencer, but him going in the ring to fight Floyd Mayweather, he chose to wear a Charizard graded around his neck, not some flashy chain that, it's like, I'm a fan of stuff that I actually see as being valuable, like a collectible, like something that I would actually throw money down, like a, First Abomination or something, than jewelry. You're not going to see me wearing jewelry, maybe some more tattoos, but like, that, I'm nothing against jewelry, by the way, precious metals or anything like that. But I like that path forward. I think the more we can grow the community is the answer, because there's a lot of complaints that people have about the comic industry. It's all resolved by more individuals getting in. That's the answer. You don't like how they're writing a certain story? Well, guess what? Let's just like triple down and get more people into comics, because there's going to be people who are going to like that story, but hey, you're going to get 3 other stories because more people are involved, and it warrants the creation of more stories. I mean, it resolves everything. I think that CGC, teaming up with a like financial, Wall Street types of individuals is going to be something that will have to resolve a lot of other problems. And I don't even think they're that big of problems. Like, I know the wait time is pretty excessive and a lot of people are frustrated about that. But when has wait times ever been good?
Right, like never, yeah.
Like I can go on the mic, man. We're talking about grading comics, and there wasn't one time where I'm like, all right, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to complain about how long it takes for me to get my comic. Like, that's boring, dude. That's the easiest complaint someone can make about stuff, and it's boring to me. Like, yeah, does it suck? Yeah. And, okay.
That is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Like, I wish my books got done quicker, but you know what? There's a lot of people grading books, and it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that we're, seeing more comic books get graded. If anything, it opens up the doors for competition, which I think is great. I love CBCS as well. I'm not tied to any particular grading service. Actually, those are the only 2 that I use. I'll say that. But I think that that's a great opportunity to create competition and more services that we're going to enjoy. Do I wish they maybe waited on video game stuff and maybe announced it different? There's probably a better way to do that. But dude, I got video games here that I'm not sending down to get graded, but now I'm like, you know what? I may send some games.
I should send those. Yeah, I had no idea that video games were so big. Like, I didn't even know you could get a video game graded, and then came across it. I was like, wow, because I had a lot of those games, when I was a kid growing up. So, all right, so question 8, and then we'll do the last 2. And the last 2 are just kind of fun questions. So, but question 8 is, I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID. and how it affected the comic book industry in a positive way. Now, you can't say anything positive about COVID, right? COVID itself was awful
Terrible.
and terrible. So, the fact that, we're now getting past that is great, but I feel like there was some innovation, specifically in the comic book industry, because that's what we're talking about, that occurred with, you see Whatnot now jumping into the comic side of things, and people are going and doing live sales. You're seeing live sales on Instagram. I've seen you and Golden Age and the guys on Instagram doing live claim sales. You're seeing those on YouTube now. You're seeing them on Facebook Live. And I don't recall seeing that many of those things, really prior to COVID. So I wanted to see if there's anything that sticks out to you as far as that was maybe innovative or changed the industry itself because of the lockdown.
Absolutely. When there are stressors, it's become sink or swim, right? And this was a very difficult time, and there has been a sad amount of stores that I enjoyed, friends in this community, stores that I bought, Corner Comics, shout out, like these places that no longer exist even in my own state because it just didn't make sense. They had to shut their doors, right? For other reasons we don't need to get into, but like there's homies that have decided that, this is no longer the route for business that I can go in this environment just because their business wasn't set up for it. And that sucks, man. That really hurts. So shout out to all the members who are like survived through this time, because it is very difficult to serve a community when you can't open your doors to them, but for good reason. We have to keep our community safe, get your vaccine. I don't talk about political stuff or anything like that, but damn, a freaking pandemic, it is very scary. And there's a lot of members that I know specifically who got COVID. It was scary for them and their family. People who had like newborns and stuff that were having to live a very complicated life because, hey, my daughter has asthma, and if something happens to her, oh my gosh, that's like what a mess that could be. So like it was a lot of stress. So I'll definitely preface that with, preface what I'll say with this. However, as far as the growth in the comic market, I've been saying for a long time, since before my channel, I would tell this to all my homies who have stores and on the con floor. Because I've been selling comics for a long time. I've been doing eBay stuff for a long time. I go to conventions, long before the show or Instagram or anything like that. And I've sat through a bunch of convention, like dealer, what would you call them? Like, it's like a conference, they'll do them for stores every year. You'll have like a full day's conference. It's sometimes where you get these like exclusives, like retailer exclusives. You go into the con early, typically the day before, and you'll have different like meetings that you can attend to as a store owner. And I'll go and represent as a store, right? Because I'm there with my homies. And a lot of those conversations were like, hey, how can we help empower you guys to do better in this space? And it was astounding how often I would hear something so simple like, you need to have a Facebook. You need to have and I'm talking like a couple years before I started the channel. We're talking like 2016, 2017, 2018, like stores that didn't have a Facebook, man. Like stores that didn't know how to use Instagram, that didn't know that they could literally comment on individuals who lived a block away from their store, who posted about a character they like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles publicly. And you could be like, yo, that's a really cool choice of cover you just posted. And then go, oh, wow, this is my LCS. I'm a block away. Like that kind of stuff is real. That happens. And the stores that jumped into social media to start being able to connect with their community, that became their saving grace during tough times. Well, when COVID hit, guess what? If you don't have that community established, you're SOL. What are you going to do? And that's why you have such a giant utilization of social media now. I think it pushed people to going, yo, if you're going to survive, you need to start growing your community and having a way to connect with your your members of your LCS or on the internet at large, right? Because you can ship comics internationally if you wanted to. And what we see now is members utilizing services that were here all along, man. I've had friends who've been selling on Instagram for like 5 years. I have friends who've been doing Facebook claim sales for 5 to 7 years in groups, making a bunch of money, serving a lot of their community by putting the work in, pressing books, hunting for books, and then grading books, organizing books, taking an entire day taking pictures and writing out individually on posts and making it their hustle and their main way of paying for their bills and serving the community. It's been happening for a long time, man, but it took some tension and some pressure to push these stores to start utilizing it and to allocate time. Because what I will say is this isn't because of laziness. You know, I'm not saying, oh, these stores didn't have a Facebook because they didn't put the time into it. No, man, like I know what goes into running a LCS. It's a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job. You're going to be hard pressed to find someone who's not putting 60, 70 hours into their LCS and they're making not very much money. You know, they're making like a surprisingly little amount of money on average. So they have to do extra work. And it's like, it just never ends. You know, they're spending their time trying to figure out how you're going to order your damn DC comics right now. Like, how do you do that? It is a ruckus. Penguin's getting the Marvel comics. How are you going to order them? They have to figure that out. That's a lot of time. And it just became more expensive to do that. So now it's actually costing them more money. Like, they're having to worry about so much, but sometimes it does take some type of stress or some type of tightening of the business that makes you go, you know what? Okay, we got to allocate some effort to figuring out how we can serve the community better. And it always comes back to one thing. You're providing value to the membership, your community, your people. If you provide value, you'll be good to go. And that's why these stores are finding success, going on Instagram, having fun. There's a difference between just going, hey, will you buy this book? Give me money, buy this book. And looking at what Torpedo Comics or what the Golden Age Guru is doing right now, where they're like making fun content, making you laugh, you know, throughout the week, doing free things for the community, participating, commenting, Comic Karma, giving stuff away for free, like, you know, making it fun and entertaining their members. Like, there's so much more than just buy from me, because you know what happens is more people start doing that, and now it gets less exciting. I could buy from him or I can buy from her. Well, they're a bit more nicer. They liked my picture. So you know what? I'm going to be at their claim sale now. And now there's like another layer of competition that emerges that now goes, you know what? All right, we got to all up our game. We got to make this exciting. We got to think about what's the next thing we can do to serve the community, because value, you're providing value to a community. They're giving you your time. So respect that time. I'm going on a tangent.
Man. All right. Love it. So, all right. So question 9. And now that I've talked to you, I'm not sure that you do anything else, but I was going to ask the question is, like, do you have any other hobbies? Like, I mean, do you collect trading cards or action figures? Right now, I believe you're like me, that you work. That's what you do. It's your family and work. And that's what you do.
Yeah. Family and work. It's very important to me. You know, it's family time. But I do collect some action figures. I do have a handful that I'm hunting for. I used to do statues. Shout out Jim Mint. Actually, shout out Jim Mint. I'll give you a soundboard here and turn it up.
It's your boy Jim Mint.
I have Mint on my soundboard, you know, on the podcast. I always think it's kind of funny. But yeah, I have like action figures like from when I was a kid that I really like to collect, like Power Rangers and such. But I collect horror movies. You know, I enjoy being able to do things while doing the comic game. And there's a lot of pricing, bagging and boarding and grading and pressing and things like that. So I like to put on horror movies on. I like to go to pawn shops and find cheap horror movies. Is something I like to do for fun. Guitar. I'm not as much of a musician as I used to be, but I used to play a lot of music with my dad. Thinking about starting that up again. I got my amp out and my Fender Telecaster. American made Telecaster in my living room right now. So that's kind of fun to check out. Video games. I do enjoy video games, but I don't play enough. I'd like to schedule my time for video games because I feel like if I don't have like a solid 5-hour session, it's not worth doing, you know? But those times are seldom, you know? Conventions are always kind of like I get asked to like do conventions a lot, to go and film and interview and do things like that. But man, cons for me are kind of like a vacation, even though I'm working and doing a lot of things and meeting members. And, it's not like 100% just me chilling and eating food and shopping comics. Like I barely even have time to shop, but I definitely don't enjoy making content as much at cons because I'd rather meet our community and the comic fam and, meet artists and writers and have fun with them,
Sure.
But those are all like things I do on my downtime for sure.
All right, cool. All right, and question 10, the last question, is there a grail that Comic Tom's looking for? Is there a comic book grail, or is there something you don't have that you would like to have?
A grail right now, man, it changes so much. There's a lot of gold. I've been into a lot of Matt Baker stuff right now, which is like the worst time to get into Matt Baker. But I think he was just such a talented individual and died way too soon. And his portfolio is so outstanding that I can't help but ask my friends, yo, you got any cool Matt Baker stuff? And I enjoy, like, when you go to a con, sometimes it's really good. Like I remember Gary, he provided some insight on one of the shows and he's like, yo, it's really good to go in there with a plan, right? But then on the contrary, I have the Golden Age Guru who's like, oh yeah, I don't go in there with a plan. I don't like going to cons with any idea of what I'm going to buy. I'm always going in there fresh, ready to just be inspired. What can I buy? And in the moment figuring it out. And I kind of lean more towards the guru in how I shop. So it's just one of those situations where it's like, yeah, sometimes I'll be patient and buy something online on eBay. I bought a bunch of Abomination and got lucky and bought him before the drop because I really like the character and there was like some Shang-Chi spec. But really, as far as grails go, I would love a Cap 1. Even say it because like I just can't imagine myself ever spending $100,000 on a comic. But a low grade comic, a low grade Cap 1, oh man, it would be pretty damn cool to own one. It's just like it's Kirby, him punching Hitler on the cover. It's so much Americana. I look at that and then I go, man, people are excited about Soup 1,
Sure.
And I don't get that type of excitement with other Golden Age books. I see Cap 1 and I'm like, damn, that right there is,
that is
first
a dope book. Yeah.
Maybe I'll say, Cap 1 probably.
Well, I tell people all the time that, like the first appearance of Superman's always been my favorite as a kid. That's all that came on TV here. Had 5 channels and Super Friends came on. And so I thought Superman was the greatest thing ever. And I also thought I could fly off the roof. If I could get up there, I could jump off and fly. That's what my mom used to tell me all the time. She was like, we were scared to death. You thought you were Superman and thought you could fly off the roof. But anyway, like I've told people, I'm like, look, the first Action Comics, first Superman, I will own it one day.
There you go.
Might own it for a week. I might have to sell my company, buy it, and then resell it after a week.
It still counts,
but I will own it.
Counts.
Yeah,
I have
it.
one more to add to my list too. Great Salt Lake Comic Con. That's another one that I started the channel with my Hellboy comics. I was one of the. I could confidently say I had one of the biggest Mignola collections at some point in the 2000s. I went ham. I spent so much money. I had like something like 5 or 6 dime press 4s, one at 9.6, one at 9. I never had a 9.8, but I had like some high grade ones. And every other Hellboy key at 9.8. I had like an entire wall of Mignola and I had stuff that was signed 9.8 and raw, the same comic, but I wanted them signed 9.8 and raw and signature series. Like I was going crazy. But there's one book that eluded me, which is the Great Salt Lake Comic Con pamphlet. And yeah, it was like a prototype of Hellboy. Doesn't look like Hellboy, but it was like his first time where he thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool to put the name Hellboy on the belt here. That's kind of a fun name. And that would inspire him to create Hellboy. Hellboy was like one of my first superhero tattoo. I think actually, no, that is my first superhero tattoo was Hellboy. And yeah, I stopped collecting Hellboy because I sold all of that to start the channel. Like I literally put the money into a new table, into a camera, into a computer to learn Adobe, microphones, a quiet keyboard I can use. Like I sold everything. And that was such a long and so much time and effort was put into that hunt that now I'm just like, I don't really want to collect Hellboy anymore, even though he's my favorite. But that pamphlet, man, it's eluded me. There was only one. Well, actually, there was 2. There was one that came up on eBay. because the person was selling a Next Men 21, and behind Next Men 21, he had the pamphlet in the corner of the shot. So I was like, yo, dude, is that really what I think it is? Is that a 1991? Is it 91? I think it's 91. Hellboy pamphlet, Salt Lake Comic-Con, Great Salt Lake Comic-Con. And he's like, oh yeah, that's not for sale, not at all. And I'm like, damn, dude, this is the closest I've ever like gotten to even seeing one. And this is through an eBay communication. I got hit up by a homie in the community, and he's like, yo, one came to market today. And just so you know, you had no chance. I bought it within 3 minutes, and it sold for $5,000. And that same person he told me that he is going to probably list it, and he's going to list it for 20 grand. So it's like, what do you do? I'm probably never going to find one, maybe on the hunt if I'm lucky. But that is something that it's like, man, it kind of feels like I'd go full circle if I can secure that one.
Awesome. Man, that is the 10 questions. And I really appreciate you, Tom, coming on and hanging out with me for a little while. Like I said, man, you're a beacon to the community. I think you definitely put out the comic karma. I know I feel the love when I watch your channel, and I've been a big fan, from the very beginning. And the fact that you would even come on and sit down on a channel, a small channel like mine, and talk just goes more to show about who you are as a person. And I just really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. You're doing great work in this community, man. It's really cool seeing friends and just other members. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. You don't have to have a show. I mean, that's what's cool about all of this, is that we all have a love for this medium, because we all know, regardless of anything, really, that comics are awesome. We can all agree on that. Now, what comics you like and what you don't like, that's your prerogative. It's up to you, right? It's all your opinion. But, I like Hellboy. Maybe you like Superman. That's cool. We have something to talk about. Doesn't matter where you live.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you spend your money on, whether you read digital, whether you buy floppies, whether you grade or you hate grading. You know what? We can at least agree on something, which is, I think, something really special about this hobby and in this medium that we all are a fan of. So keep up the good work, man. It's really fun seeing my own friends on here, and I encourage just other members too. Whether it's just posting on Instagram and sharing your collection. You don't have to be in the videos. You don't have to be in the pictures. But if you feel comfortable, then put yourself out there. It's fun. You'll make friends. And
you really will.
I've
made so many friends, Tom. I've made so many friends. I said I found something that was missing in my life I didn't know was missing. When I threw myself fully into the comic book community. And I've said it many times on here, and I'll say it again right now. If the world behaved and treated each other like the comic book community does, the world would be a whole lot better place.
Damn right, man. This community is not new. This community has existed when, there's a reason why comics have lasted so long, is because this community without the internet existed, and now the fact that we can connect the way that we do, there's no telling how big the community can get and how much positivity can spread from it. We're just beginning to see it, and it's very exciting to be alive at the same time as all of our members right now. Like, statistically improbable. I love it.
Love it. All right, guys, that's it for 10 questions this week. Before we go, I do want to remind you about my code over at Street Level Hero LA. That is STC10. Use that code, get 10% off. But most importantly, Street Level Hero JPG will donate 25% of your overall order to the American Cancer Society for Cancer Research. Tom, we started out, and it was like, JPG was like, all right, dude, we'll have to do it for a limited time. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And we just keep going, because the community has come together, raising a bunch of money for a great cause. And it's a cause that's really, really important to me. And we appreciate the support that you guys have been giving. So thank you. And guys, Comic Tom, what can I say, man? So excited to have him on here. I will put his stuff in the description below, like if you need it. If you do, then okay. But it'll be there anyway if you need to find him. So, guys, that's been 10 questions.